Hello everyone. Let me ask you something that may feel uncomfortable but necessary. Have you ever sat across from someone you loved and felt in your bones that something wasn't right, yet couldn't quite put your finger on it? The long glances at her phone, the sudden coldness, the deflections when you tried to reach her emotionally. And in that vulnerable space, where love is supposed to be healing, you began to feel like you were not only being emotionally betrayed, but quietly trapped. Because what most men don't realize is this: while she's pulling away, while her affections turn to someone else, she may already be positioning herself in a far more insidious way. Not just to hurt you emotionally, but legally. It's one thing to feel the ache of betrayal, but it's another thing entirely when the woman you once trusted uses the system itself as a weapon against you. And here's what makes this dangerous. Even as she's the one straying, she can turn the law into a tool of control, a way to protect her image, hurt your finances, or even remove you from your own home. That's why today, we need to have an honest conversation, man to man, but also from a perspective that understands relationship dynamics at their deepest. Because it's not just about infidelity. It's about power, fear, reputation, and vulnerability when love turns cold. You know, when we talk about betrayal, we often think only of the heart touch, the loneliness, the shock, the loss of trust. But what I want you to realize today is that betrayal can have consequences far beyond the emotional. There's a complexity that isn't just about broken hearts. It's about broken structures, broken homes, and in some cases, a systematic dismantling of your security and identity through legal channels you didn't even see coming. So let's talk about the first legal maneuver a woman might launch against you while she's cheating, and why it feels so disorienting for men who never expected the law to play a role in their intimate life. False allegations of abuse. It may begin with subtle provocations, emotional distance, picking fights, rewriting history. And in that state of tension, when you're feeling hurt, confused, maybe desperate to keep the relationship together, it's easy to react. Maybe you raise your voice one night, maybe you slam a door, and what you didn't realize is that this moment, this snapshot, can be weaponized as evidence. She may walk into a police station or courtroom and paint a picture of you as threatening, aggressive, even dangerous, all while she's the one emotionally exiting the relationship behind your back. And here's the chilling part: in many places, allegations alone can lead to immediate consequences. You could be removed from your home, restrained from seeing your children, or find yourself defending your character in court before you even understand what's happening. For a man over 30, who's spent years building a life, a home, and perhaps a family, this isn't just about heartbreak anymore. It's about your name, your reputation, your place in your children's lives, and it can all start unraveling before you even realize how precarious things have become. You might be thinking, why would she do this? Why would someone I once trusted so deeply, someone I may still love, go this far? And the answer isn't always malicious in a way we understand. It's sometimes about self-protection or even preemptive guilt. If she's stepping outside the relationship, she may feel vulnerable to being judged, exposed. And so the narrative flips. Instead of her carrying the shame, she frames you as the problem. It's a psychological defense mechanism, but with very real, very damaging legal teeth. And here's the second tactic that often follows: quietly but effectively manipulating property claims or financial leverage. While you're reeling emotionally, confused by her coldness or her absence, she may already be consulting legal advice, positioning herself to claim assets, take control of shared bank accounts, or even initiate divorce proceedings that are stacked in her favor. In many places, property division doesn't always depend on who earned more or who contributed most. It's about timing, paperwork, perception. So when you're distracted by her infidelity, when you're caught up wondering where she is late at night or scrolling through old photos trying to figure out what went wrong, she could already be dividing the life you built together in a way that leaves you with less than you ever imagined. And the reason this feels so devastating isn't just financial, it's deeply existential, because while you're still in love, or at least still processing the heartbreak, you're also being reduced to an opponent in a system that doesn't care how much you cared, how many nights you stayed up holding her, how many times you forgave her distance. It's one thing to lose love, it's another to lose your footing, your financial security, your home, all while feeling like you're the one who's been wronged. But here's the hardest part to confront. Many men in their 30s and beyond are completely unprepared for this. They operate on trust, on emotional loyalty. They believe that love, even when it fails, will somehow protect them from the worst. And so they're caught off guard, vulnerable not just emotionally but legally. This is why we must have these conversations, not to vilify women, but to help men understand the reality of what can happen when love, trust, and legal structures collide, because your innocence, your good intentions, even your pain won't necessarily shield you from a system that responds to narratives and paperwork, not feelings. Now, as we begin to sit with these difficult truths, I want to invite you to reflect. If you've ever felt that creeping doubt, the sense that something deeper was unraveling behind her sudden coldness or unexplained absences, you're not crazy, you're not paranoid, you're not weak for feeling disoriented. You're human. What matters is what you do next, how you protect your peace, your dignity, and your future, not not just your heart. Because when trust is broken, when a relationship is no longer safe, it's easy to retreat into shame or anger, but neither will help you navigate the complexity ahead. So breathe, know that you're not alone, and know that knowledge itself is a kind of strength, a way to reclaim your sense of power, even when things feel most uncertain. With this in mind, let's continue exploring this landscape. We've looked at false allegations and financial maneuvering, but there's more, and it's important. You see, as we journey deeper into this emotional landscape, I want you to understand something essential. When a relationship begins to unravel, especially when infidelity is in play, what often hurts the most isn't just the betrayal itself. It's the disorientation, the feeling that you no longer recognize the person sitting across from you. That person who once whispered promises at midnight can, under certain conditions, suddenly feel like a stranger or worse, an adversary. And this brings us gently to another legal attack that can unfold while she's cheating, securing temporary custody orders against you, often preemptively and sometimes manipulatively. It can start with small hints, subtle comments about your parenting, exaggerated critiques of your temper, passive-aggressive insinuations that you're too distracted or emotionally unavailable, and you might dismiss them at first because these comments feel so at odds with the life you've built together, with the father you know yourself to be. But while you're grappling with betrayal, while you're processing her absence, her deception, she may quietly consult legal counsel and seek custody orders that claim you're unstable, that your home environment is unsafe, or that the children would be better off in her sole care. And because courts are often risk-averse and inclined toward protecting children, temporary custody orders can be issued quickly, sometimes before you've even had a chance to respond, to defend, or to explain. Now, imagine how that feels. Not only have you lost her emotionally, but you're being positioned as a threat to your own children. The same children you may have rocked to sleep, driven to school, kissed goodnight, and raised with love. It's a legal move that can cut to the very heart of a man's identity, not just as a partner, but as a father. And what makes it even harder is that the allegations don't always need to be proven beyond doubt. In many jurisdictions, family courts often act swiftly. The best interest of the child, which can mean erring on the side of caution, and that caution may come at your expense. But this isn't just about custody on paper. This is about leverage, because custody isn't simply a matter of parenting time. It's also tied to child support, housing rights, and broader narratives that will follow you throughout any subsequent legal proceedings. And while you're trying to hold yourself together emotionally, you might find yourself scrambling to gather evidence to prove you're a loving, stable, present father, all while being painted in a way that contradicts everything you know to be true about yourself. So you see, it isn't just a breakup. It's a slow erosion of your identity, your role, your narrative. And unless you're prepared, you may find yourself silenced in the very conversation that defines your future. Now, let's shift into another terrain that many men never expect: restraining orders rooted in fear, not fact, used as a tool of control rather than protection. In situations where she's cheating, but wanting to protect her narrative, she may frame your natural reactions, your sadness, your frustration, even your confusion, as harassment or intimidation. You may send heartfelt texts, asking where she's been, pleading for answers, trying to understand what went wrong, and those messages can be reinterpreted as threatening, obsessive, or abusive. And when she presents this in a legal setting, particularly against the backdrop of infidelity she's concealing, it can shift the power dynamic instantly. What was once an intimate relationship is now reframed through a legal lens where your words, your gestures, even your attempts at reconciliation are seen not as emotional but as dangerous. And this is where it gets especially tricky for men over 30, men who have invested years into their relationships, who've built homes, who've raised children, who perhaps see themselves as thoughtful, loving, maybe even self-sacrificing partners. Because you never imagined that your pain, your yearning, your vulnerability could be turned against you as evidence of instability. But this happens more often than many realize, and it happens because the legal system isn't designed to pass emotional nuance. It's designed to protect, to intervene swiftly, and in doing so, it sometimes errs on the side of caution, again at your expense. So where does this leave you? In a space where you feel powerless, confused, and alienated, not just from her, but from the very structures that are supposed to uphold fairness and justice. And that's why this conversation matters. Because understanding that these legal maneuvers can happen, even as you're still emotionally attached, can help you center yourself. It can help you prepare, protect your dignity, and act wisely rather than impulsively. This isn't about becoming paranoid or adversarial. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that love and law are not the same. That heartbreak can invite more than just emotional pain. That sometimes the person you trusted most can rewrite your shared story in a courtroom before you've even had a chance to understand what's really happening. And while that realization may sting, it is also liberating, because knowledge is power, awareness creates options, and presence, deep, grounded, clear-headed presence, allows you to step back from the chaos, assess what's unfolding, and protect what matters most, your peace, your reputation, your future. So as we move forward, I want you to hold this truth gently but firmly. You are not crazy for feeling blindsided. You are not weak for feeling hurt. You are human. And while the pain may be personal, the patterns are universal. Men everywhere face this quiet, devastating intersection between emotional betrayal and legal vulnerability, and you're not alone. We've explored how false allegations, financial maneuvering, custody attacks, and restraining orders can all form part of this hidden legal arsenal. But there's still more to uncover, more nuance to explore, because understanding the full landscape is how you'll ultimately find your strength again. And as we sit together in this difficult but honest conversation, I want to speak directly to the part of you that might be feeling both exhausted and incredulous. Because this is the space where betrayal feels most raw, not just the betrayal of trust, but the betrayal of systems that you thought were designed to protect fairness and dignity. And this leads us gently into another maneuver. She may deploy the use of shared debt or financial entanglements as a weapon. While you're emotionally reeling from her distance, her late nights, and her unexplained absences, she may quietly begin making financial decisions that impact you profoundly. She may rack up debt on joint accounts. She may authorize large purchases under your shared credit lines, knowing that if the relationship fractures, that debt becomes your burden as much as hers. And you might think, surely, this will all balance out when the dust settles, right? Surely, the system will see who did what. But here's the painful reality. Debt incurred during a relationship is often considered shared, regardless of who initiated it. So while you're sitting at home wondering if she's with someone else, she could already be spending in ways that will haunt your finances for years to come. This isn't just about money. It's about the slow erosion of trust and security. Those invisible threads that held your shared life together unraveling, not just emotionally, but practically. And when this happens, it often catches men by surprise, because financial entanglement was never meant to feel like a trap. It was supposed to symbolize shared dreams, shared futures. But when she's cheating, when her heart and attention have already turned elsewhere, those shared commitments can suddenly become liabilities used strategically. And what hurts most is how impersonal it feels. A relationship that was once intimate and deeply personal becomes reduced to account statements, balances, debts, liabilities. And this brings us gently to another legal tactic that is subtle but powerful: the strategic manipulation of spousal support or alimony claims. If she's preparing to leave, she may be laying the groundwork long before you even realize separation is imminent. She might begin portraying herself as financially dependent, perhaps working less, citing emotional or health struggles, framing herself as vulnerable or fragile, while at the same time withdrawing emotionally, investing her energy elsewhere. And here's what makes this devastating for many men over 30. Courts often assess spousal support based not on infidelity or loyalty, but on income disparities and perceived need. So even if she's the one leaving, even if she's the one who's betrayed the vows, you may still find yourself legally obligated to support her financially after the relationship ends. Imagine the emotional dissonance. Not only have you lost her heart, not only have you been blindsided by betrayal, but now you're being asked to subsidize her life after she's left you for someone else. This is where so many men feel a profound sense of injustice, not because they resent supporting a former partner per se, but because it feels like a reward for betrayal, a punishment for loyalty, a cruel inversion of what love was supposed to mean. And it's here that I want to pause, not to scare you, but to invite you to breathe and center yourself. Because this isn't about painting her as a villain or you as a victim. It's about acknowledging that when emotions run high, when betrayal enters a relationship, people sometimes act not from their best selves, but from fear, guilt, self-protection. And yet, while that may explain behavior, it doesn't make you powerless. In fact, this awareness allows you to move through this terrain not as an unprepared participant, but as a man who knows what's possible, who understands the landscape, who recognizes that love and legality are often intertwined in ways we never imagined when we first fell in love. You may be feeling anger right now, and that's normal. You may be feeling sadness, regret, grief, but I want you to hold space for something else too: dignity. Because dignity is what will carry you forward. Not bitterness, not revenge, but clarity, grace, and preparation. Because even in this painful unraveling, even as she distances herself and perhaps weaponizes legal structures, you still have agency. You can gather yourself emotionally, you can seek sound advice, you can document calmly, protect quietly, and act from a place of grounded awareness rather than reactivity. And this is the subtle but profound shift that can change everything. Moving from a position of emotional disorientation to one of strategic clarity, not to fight or punish, but to protect your peace, your reputation, your financial future. And so as we begin to close this part of the conversation, I want you to reflect on something deeper. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, insidious, wrapped in paperwork and polite legal language. Sometimes it's not a shout but a whisper, an attorney's letter, a court order, a financial statement. But even then, even in those moments that feel impersonal and cold, you can maintain your integrity. You can stay calm, thoughtful, deliberate. You can refuse to let your pain dictate your response. And that, my friend, is where your power lies. Because betrayal may come in many forms, but so does resilience. So does wisdom. So does grace under pressure. By now, you may be feeling the heaviness of what we've uncovered together, the quiet but potent legal avenues that can be used against you even as you sit in the ruins of emotional betrayal. It's a reality that many men face without warning, caught between love lost and a system that doesn't always recognize the complexities of human relationships. And yet, there's one more dimension we must address before we bring this conversation gently to a close. Public narrative manipulation, the strategic crafting of her image as the victim in social and professional spaces while you remain confused and defenseless. This isn't strictly legal, but it sets the stage for legal outcomes to be weighted in her favor. Picture this: before you even know that your relationship is nearing its end, she has begun telling her story, selectively, carefully, to friends, family, colleagues. She frames herself as misunderstood, unsupported, mistreated. She recounts moments where you were stressed, irritable, perhaps distant, cherry-picking them into a narrative that makes her appear sympathetic and you problematic. And here's the heartbreak: these stories often find fertile ground in a culture that, rightly or wrongly, has become attuned to believing and supporting women first. That isn't a criticism of those cultural shifts. It's an observation of the climate you're navigating. So by the time legal papers are served, by the time she files for divorce or custody or restraining orders or support, the groundwork is already laid. The court may be impartial on paper, but everyone around you, friends, extended family, even mutual acquaintances, may already see you through a lens of suspicion, doubt, and judgment. That isolation, that subtle undermining of your character and intentions, can be almost as damaging as the legal maneuvers themselves, because it leaves you feeling not only legally vulnerable, but emotionally abandoned, estranged from your own community, your own support system. And yet, here is where your awareness becomes your greatest strength. Knowing this possibility means you can navigate it differently, not by lashing out or defending yourself frantically, but by holding your ground quietly, calmly, intentionally. You can protect your dignity by refusing to engage in smear campaigns of your own. You can preserve your integrity by responding, not reacting, because in the long run, the truth has a way of surfacing, but only if you don't damage yourself in the process of trying to defend your reputation too quickly or too loudly. So what can you do really? First, recognize that if you feel blindsided right now, that doesn't make you naive, it makes you human. Love is not a legal contract in our hearts. It is a vulnerable space where we trust, where we soften, where we share our innermost selves. When that space is breached, when betrayal enters and legal structures are mobilized against us, it can feel profoundly disorienting. But second, and this is key, understand that you still have choices. You can take a deep breath and begin documenting carefully. You can consult wise counsel, not just legal, but emotional. You can gather the small details that reveal your care, your stability, your involvement as a partner and father, if that applies. You can avoid escalation even when your emotions urge otherwise. You can speak less and listen more. You can protect your financial interests quietly, your parental role deliberately, and your emotional well-being gently but firmly. Because even in this landscape of legal attacks, false allegations, financial manipulation, custody challenges, restraining orders, debt entrapment, spousal support claims, and narrative warfare, you can remain a man of presence, grace, and self-control. And isn't that what true power looks like? To refuse to let betrayal dictate your identity, to remain grounded, composed, and dignified even in the face of injustice. To protect yourself without becoming hardened or bitter. That, my friend, is what resilience really is. Not the absence of heartbreak, but the ability to hold heartbreak and act wisely anyway. So as we close this conversation, I want you to remember, if you find yourself facing this quiet war, you're not alone. Many good, thoughtful, loving men have walked this path. And while it feels deeply personal, the patterns are common, the pain is shared, and the way through it is paved not by rage, but by clarity. You are not defined by how she portrays you. You are not reduced to the allegations she may make. You are not powerless before a system that feels overwhelming. You can rise, not by fighting her, but by standing firm in yourself. And as you do, allow yourself to grieve, but do so with dignity. Seek advice, but choose your advisors wisely. Speak carefully, but act decisively. And above all, protect your peace, because peace, in the end, is the one thing no legal proceeding, no betrayal, no story told behind your back can take from you unless you allow it. Thank you for sharing this vulnerable space with me today. You matter, your story matters, and your next chapter, whatever it holds, can still be written with grace, courage, and self-respect. If this conversation resonated with you, share your experience in the comments below. You never know how your story may help another man find clarity and strength in a difficult time. And if you found value in this space, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more honest, human, relationship-centered conversations, because we all deserve relationships that honor our humanity, even when they end. Here's to your peace, your dignity, and your ability to stay grounded, no matter what.